Alright, so I'm back with another video here, and this is another OTB classical chess analysis. So this is a game that I played a few years ago, probably, I don't know, probably 2017, 2018, and I had the black pieces in this game against 1932 in round one of a tournament I was playing in, and thought this was pretty fun game with a very nice tactical sequence at the end to get a really nice mating attack. So let's just jump right in. So we have a Sicilian, and after knight f3, I go for a little bit of a surprise weapon I've had that I used to play a lot more. I haven't been playing it a lot recently, but I have it in my back pocket because I did a lot of analysis on it back in the day when I was taking chess like pretty seriously in early high school-ish, around that time period. So I go knight f6 here, Nimzowitsch Sicilian, and he chooses to not go into the main line. So the main line being e5 and knight d5, and there's a lot of theory in that that I've worked out long ago. Generally, I'd say it's pretty good for white, but it catches opponents off guard, and I know it much better than they know it, generally speaking, if they don't go for the most pressing lines for white. And I can definitely catch opponents off guard if they're sub 2000. I'd say if you're playing guys over 2000, you have to really know what you're doing because white can get a very nice position. So he goes knight c3, declining the main line, whereupon I go d5. And he goes bishop b5 check, I go bishop d7, and he trades, and then he chooses to trade everything on d5. I don't think this is the best line for white. I think white has better options against this opening because now black is pretty comfortable. He's got a really good centralized queen that can hit a lot of squares, and development is pretty easy. I'm going to fianchetto this bishop. Most likely, however, you don't have to, but black's development is really easy here. He just goes knight c6 and then e6, bishop e7, or g6, bishop g7, one of the two, and then just castles, and he's got a very solid position here. It's hard to say either side has much of an advantage here, though. So white castles here, and I go knight c6. He goes d3, just planning to bring the bishop out. And then I go g6, bishop e3, and then bishop g7, putting my bishop on the long diagonal, and I'm also hitting this pawn, so he has to do something about that. And he goes queen to c1 to defend that pawn. And I think my position is very nice here because now his queen is tied down to defending this pawn, which means he can't really get his rook he can't really connect his rooks very easily. And so I don't think queen c1 is really the best. But really, I just have a nice position here. And unfortunately, I go for a plan that is totally unnecessary. But also with queen c1, he might look to trade off the dark square bishops. And I didn't really want to allow that, so I go h5. The point is that now he does not have bishop h6, and I'm gaining a little bit of space on the king side. And, while it does look a little bit risky, I still have possibilities of castling queenside at the right moment. So he goes rook e1, just putting his rook on a semi-open file, opposite my king at the moment right now, too. And I play h4. Which is this is one of my inferior moves of the game. I just don't really think that this move makes a whole lot of sense. I think it's a little bit more weakening than I want it to be. Because after h3, it just seems like this pawn is more of a weakness, and it's very hard to get any sort of attack over here. So basically, I need to decide if I'm going to castle kingside or if I'm going to castle queenside. And now that I've pushed h5, h4, it doesn't look like castling kingside is a very good option. So I do want to castle queenside. But right now, my king is not necessarily under a lot of fire right now. So I want to think about, okay, so I've played h5, h4, and he's kind of shut my play down with h3. So that plan didn't really go very well. So I want to think about how I can continue some sort of attack over on the king side. And the only way that I really view that as possible is if I do something like g5, g4. And that's really hard to set up right now because he has a lot of pieces aimed at the g5 square. So g5 is a very difficult move to play And I really do want to play g4 to try and bust open his king side, but it's not so easy to figure out how to do that. So I play a move that looks very unintuitive, but it does have a plan. So I go f6 here. And while the engine really doesn't like it here, I think white has to be more careful than you might think. Because I'm blocking this bishop. I'm blocking my good bishop right now. But I'm saying, okay, I have a little bit more of a grip on the e5 square due to this pawn. And I really, really want to play g5, g4. And if I can get in g5, g4, I think my position is going to be quite nice. Unfortunately, I don't think it's super great for black because, you know, if white plays properly, I think black is going to have a difficult position. However, in only a couple moves, my position turns from suspicious to very, very good. So he goes c3 here, which makes a lot of sense. He wants to go d4, which is a pretty logical move. I go g5 as planned. I went f6 so that I could play g5, so I do it. And I'm looking to play g4 at the right moment. Okay, he goes knight to h2. And, you know, I don't think that's the best move. I really think you have to play something like d4, I would imagine. But it is difficult to come up with a plan for white here because, you know, g4 does look a little scary. So I don't blame him for wanting to defend g4 with the knight, because g4 followed by h3 and ripping open his king side does look a little bit scary. Okay, so he goes knight h2, and here I make a mistake. I really should castle queenside or play something like e5 and just gain a big center and try and stop him from going d4. Because once he gets d4 in, you know, his play kind of looks pretty good. But I go knight e5 here, and unfortunately I missed a tactic and then he missed it. So in this position, he's actually much better here because he has bishop takes c5. And the idea is after bishop takes c5, if I play something like knight takes d3 per se, he would have rook takes e7, which would be very good for him. And if I play queen takes d3, he would have another very nice move. He would have knight g4. And, you know, it's really not so clear here who's better because, you know, now my king is looking pretty unsafe here since he's got so much pressure on the e-file. Obviously, he's increasing pressure on e5, and I can't really move the knight. You know, I can play knight g6 and defend here, but my position is just really suspicious because I can't castle here. But unfortunately, he also, if bishop takes c5, the point is after queen takes c5, d4. But he goes rook d1 here, which is not the best move. And it's just because now I can start breaking through with g4. I think rook d1 is too slow. He should have gone for d4 or bishop takes c5 right away. But he's kind of wasting too much time, and his major pieces are kind of all stuck on the queen side. So I'm going to go for an attack on the king side. And g4 does the trick. And I think this is his last moment to play d4 before I get to his king. But unfortunately, he plays knight takes g4, and after knight takes g4, h takes g4, h3, it becomes clear that he's got a problem here. The problem is after g takes h3, rook takes h3, you're going to be in some serious trouble here due to mate threats on h1. So that would be no good. So you need to think about how you can block this diagonal. Obviously, the immediate threat is queen takes g2, but since you can't move this pawn, you have to go f3 here, which he does. And then after h takes g2, king takes g2, I went rook to h4. And it's really interesting how white can actually hold here. Because after rook h4, my plan was to simply go rook takes g4 and exploit this pin. However, the engine points out that he can actually survive this. So after something like rook h1, I can go rook takes g4, and after king f2, my rook is kind of short on squares, and after rook g6, you know, I'm not even up material. I just won back a pawn. And you know, my position's not like dominant or anything. This bishop is bad now because I blocked it. And you know, if I have time to castle queenside, maybe I'm doing okay, but it's not winning anymore, unfortunately. I think white has kind of stopped my counterplay, and there aren't enough pieces on the board for me to properly conduct a strong attack. So, however, in the game, he blunders here. You know, I guess rook h1 is a move. D4 is also probably a move. That, you know, those moves aren't like so bad for white, but I think maybe black still has some chances. However, he blunders here big time. He goes king to g3. And this allows me to embark on a very nice tactical sequence to finish him off. Unfortunately, he missed this in the game, and I make a brilliant move here, rook h3 check. And so the idea here is I'm really trying to take advantage of the fact that all of his pieces are over here. So I need to act quickly if I want to deliver some sort of checkmate. So the idea is, after king takes h3, obviously if you retreat the king to either of those squares, queen takes f3 is going to lead to mate. So he goes king takes h3. And then after queen takes f3 check, he goes king h4. You know, if you go king h2, something like king f7 followed by rook h8 is also good for white. And white would be, or sorry, good for black. Black would be getting a winning attack there. But he goes king h4, and you know, this leads to mate as well. And I go castle queenside. And after rook f1, rook h8, bishop h6, and after bishop takes h6, rook takes f3, and then there is the nice checkmate to finish, bishop to f4 checkmate. Notice how I've given up a lot of material. I gave up my queen, I gave up my rook in this initial position, and then I give up my queen, and I get this nice mate with rook and bishop. Even though he has two rooks and a queen, I have better pieces and the safer king, and I was able to deliver a nice mating attack. So I thought this attack was pretty nice just because I had a nice tactical sequence, and it's always nice to make a quiet move like after king h4 when you castle queenside, and there's no way to stop the devastating attack after rook h8. So I thought that was a good game. I played this a while ago, but just been looking through my notation sheets from back in the day and found this nice one. And that's all for this video, and I'll see you guys next time.